All right. All right, let's go. How the hell is everybody doing? What is it? It's Monday. Hockey starts this week. Camp starts this week. We got games this weekend. What happened? I mean, I know I got old, but I feel like I lost 2 months. I think I did lose 2 months. So welcome, 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 welcome to year 9. Year 9. Now, normally I give that speech when I'm getting ready to do the recap game 1. And I'll probably give it again because I'm old and I like to repeat myself. But year 9 of this channel covering the Florida Panthers from beginning to end, whatever that end, whatever that end may be this year. And I tell you, I don't think there was ever a time when I would have had the question. If somebody would have said to me, you think the Panthers can make the Stanley Cup final 3 times in a row? I can't even get it out of my mouth without laughing. I can't even get it out of my mouth without laughing. Now, for those of you in the chat, good morning, good afternoon. I'm blind now these days. StreamYard gave us a dark mode, which is really a lot easier on my eyes. However, what I'm just now discovering, because this is the first time I'm doing one, is I'm going to have to blow up the chat really fast so I won't be able to see myself on screen. There we go. The screen is black and I can read what you're saying. I think that I said that's Jackson saying good afternoon. That's Dietrich saying, and we're back. All right. Unfortunately for me, I'm going to have to change the coloring here. I have to see what the background is black and they've got your names in like this red. The text is in white. Your comments are in white, but the text is in red. So I can barely, I'm colorblind. First off, I'm blind. See, does it make any difference with my glasses on? I'm not doing the streams with my glasses on. Does it make any difference? It comes into better focus, but colorblind is colorblind. So back to what I was bitching about. See, that's what we're going to do this year. We're gonna have to find things to bitch about because, 82 games plus all the playoffs plus everything else, all the positivity does get annoying at some point. It was good that we lost those 3 games, right? To the Oilers. That gave me something to complain about. It's not much to complain about, right? Like I was saying at the beginning, if you would have even asked me, if you would have even told me to consider the possibility that maybe we might think about thinking about a remote possibility that there could kind of be a chance that the Panthers would be making the Stanley Cup final 3 years in a row, I probably would have thrown this phone at your head and probably missed. But that's where we are. That is where we are. We find ourselves in repeat mode. We find ourselves in defend our championship mode. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I've been telling everybody knows everything that went on during the summer. I'm not going to get into that, but I've been telling people they need to win again so Kyle and I have a clean experience. And that's just the way it is. For me, I did not experience them winning the Stanley Cup. What I experienced was them not getting reverse swept. Because had they gotten reverse swept and then 2 weeks later Fluffy died, I don't know if I'd be sitting in this chair right now. That might have been too much. That might have been too much. But when they won, we get a 3-0 lead. At that point, you expect to win, right? Like in your head, in your heart, it's like just give me the trophy, give me the cup. It's already ours, right? We should already had this thing. So you lose 4, you lose game 5, you lose game 6, and I mean, obviously, I was excited, I was animated, and I was all the things that you would expect during that game. But then there was a portion I was cut into thirds during Game 7. 1/3 of me was, oh my God, we might win the cup. Oh my God, we might win the cup. The other third of me was, the dog is going to die any day. And the other third to me was just like numb, just like absolutely numb to what was going on. Like either way, it was just going to be like, okay, they're either going to win the cup and Fluffy's going to die, or they're going to get reverse swept and then Fluffy's going to die. And either way, there was no clean way for me to experience what happened. I have guilt from a memory of guilt. We'll put it that way. I don't know. This is about 4 or 5 days after. Well, no, it was whenever the parade was. It was during the parade or after the parade when the highlights were on YouTube. Now, up to that point, I had not watched anything. I had not been able to watch anything because unless I was recording content for the channel, I was literally on the floor easing the dog's pain, and just it was tough. But there's this one video where it was an 8-minute long video about show the highlights of the parade. And I got about 3 or 4 minutes through it, sitting in my chair watching it, and he started whining at me and crying at me to come sit back on the floor with him. And I have guilt for telling him, just give me 4 minutes. I remember just telling him, buddy, just give me 4 minutes. And I watched the rest of the video, but it was a blank slate. I was totally numb to the experience. So they have to win again, right? They absolutely have to win again. Yeah, Colby says we can be like the Chiefs who had so many shit years and then emerged as a dynasty, right? So, and Jackson says we won the cup. Doesn't matter how. I never lost faith in the team. Even after losing games 4 through 6, I knew we were going to win it. I think that's kind of where I was a little bit too, where it was just like, you know, when I would talk with Kyle about it and talk with Karen about it, you know, obviously I would be crying at the same time, but I would be like, God's not going to let us get reverse swept and the dog die, right? You know what I mean? Like I knew it was like that. They're not gonna do both, right? It's like, I know the dog is dying. Okay, we're going to win the cup. There's no way. There's no way I'm going to have to go through both, right? And that's kind of how I watched Game 7 a little bit, which was like, it was just kind of like, yeah, there's no way they're going to lose, because it's just that, you know, like Kyle and I would joke about it. It's just like the devil would be reading the script. It was like, bro, let him win the cup. Come on, man. You know what I mean? It was. So when we won, it was just like, it was the weirdest. It was just the weirdest feeling, weirdest expression I ever had, because it was just like, it was like you did it. It was like you got your job done at work. You know, it was like, okay, whew, that was a long day. All right. You know what I mean? It just, I know it felt different than it should. Jack says, good thing the devil wasn't from New Jersey, right? Dietrich says, balance in the force spirit of Fluffy dancing with the Ewoks. Yeah. Jack says, what classifies as a dynasty in the NHL these days? I think the last one you would really go back to was Edmonton, right? You know, I think Edmonton would really be the last one. I think if Tampa had won 3, right? If they had won the third one, I think you could call that a dynasty. Or if they win 2, miss a year, and then win another one, I think 3 in 5 years, I would think you start calling that a dynasty. That would be my opinion. You know, Colby says, even though we already won the cup, I'm craving another one, maybe even one more. I mean, we got the core locked up. We got the team locked up. You got to give Zito credit. You know, there's a lot of new guys, a lot of possibility, new faces on the fourth line. You know, we're going to pencil in Samoskevich next to Lundell and Luosterainen, but you guys have been around this channel long enough. We used to pencil in Borgstrom and we penciled in Tippett. So I'll believe it when I see it, you know. Yeah, another Zito masterclass, Jackson. You know, the fourth line, I know some people got a little bit concerned because, you know, no Cousins, no Lomberg, no Stenley. It was a complete remake. But we got bigger. We got bigger on the fourth line. And look, let's be honest here, okay? We kind of got pushed around against Vegas, you know what I mean? And there was a reason why Lorentz and Okposo played so much more there towards the end instead of Lomberg and Cousins. And it's just size. Now, I know Lomberg was on the ice for Game 7. Cousins never got back on the ice. And, Stenlin, I don't see the changeover on the fourth line being a reason why we can't repeat. I don't think it will come to that. I think if we get to the trade deadline or near the trade deadline and Zito feels like he needs to bring in somebody like he did this last year, I don't see that as being an issue. Backup goaltending. We all love Spencer Knight, right? We all love Spencer Knight. We all know what he should be, what he might be, what he could be, what he's supposed to be. But what is he, right? What is he? What's he going to be? And there's not a lot of room for error there for us to find out. I know we brought back Chris Drieger. He's anticipating to be at Charlotte, right? With the Checkers, he's anticipating being the AHL. So Spencer's got to be ready, and he's got to be ready to rock and roll. Now Bob's not getting any younger, that too. So I don't expect really any slippage on Bob's play, but we need Spencer Knight to pull his weight the way that Stolarz did last year. That was part of the reason why Bob was able to make it the entire length of the playoffs and still look pretty damn good all the way through, was because he never got burnt out during the season. I don't remember too many stretches of 5 or 6 games straight for Bob before Stolarz would get one in. And there were some times when Stolarz might get 2 out of 3. So Spencer Knight's a big part of if we can repeat or not. Now, Dietrich is saying potential Barkov injuries. I mean, if Barkov is out during a playoff run, that's going to have an effect. This team, how can I put this? I don't want to attempt fate. We'll put it that way. I don't want to attempt fate. But same point, if we lost Barkov for even a significant portion of the season, I still feel like this is a playoff team. All right. Lundell, Bennett, Luosterainen, I still feel pretty good about where we'd be down the middle. I'm not saying playoffs and winning the cup is a different story. But if something was to happen to him in October and he was going to miss, be gone till Christmas, we would be able to stay in the playoff race without him. And it would take some, doing. But past that, there's really no reason why this team should not be right there at the end. I think somebody up above had asked about potential Panthers, Leafs Eastern Conference final, but we can't. I don't think you can get that, right? You can't have an Eastern Conference Finals with the 2 teams in the same division. So if the furthest we could meet them is in the second round. I don't think that there's a path, right? Because even if you got 2 wild cards from the same division, I don't think there's a path there for that. I anticipate, obviously, the Leafs making the playoffs, right? Jackson says if the seeding is right, pretty sure you could. Well, I guess if you had all 5 teams in the Atlantic, and then I don't know. I'd have to. My brain is not ready to envision the playoff seedings just yet. But if it's possible, it's possible. Yeah, Colby says the Leafs are the Dolphins and the Dolphins are the Leafs. The Leafs fans are hyped up, just how the Dolphins fans were, and look at how that worked out. It's the truth, Colby. It's definitely the truth. Now, I know defensively we're going to have a little bit of a different setup, right? Bohlquist might be in the mix. I still feel good about where we are defensively. If Ekblad can, knock on wood, Ekblad has to stay healthy, right? Ekblad has to stay healthy. and Forsling just continue to do what he's doing. I think you're going to see Mikkola, get even better, right? And then you've got everybody else. Belinskas is expected, hopefully should be here, and not get sent back down because I don't think he would clear waivers. So there's a couple roster spots that are open, but the top 9 for the most part is going to be set. I would assume, like I said, that Samoskevich is going to make the team and make that top 9 spot, but there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees there, and we don't really know. It'll be interesting to see where Maurice picks up. Where's Rodriguez going to slot in, right? Where's Reinhardt going to slot in? Are we keeping Reinhardt up top? Are we going to put Rodriguez up top? Is there someone else that's going to sneak in next to Chuck and have Reinhardt be in that third spot? Next to Lundell and Luster-Ryan. We've got a lot of options. Colby wants to know if I have any early Atlantic standings predictions. Well, let me take a think of that. The only thing I can say, I just don't know if we win the again. Right? It's going to look different, right? And I'll say that's going to be interesting. I know that they added, but it'll be interesting to see how that works out. And Tampa is the same question here. How many games do you make in Vasilevsky? Right? I think he's 30, close to 30 now. He might be 30 now. So you don't know about Boston. You have to assume they're going to get Swayman signed, but they kind of put in a pickle there. But Boston was surprisingly good last year. People kind of thought they were going to fall off, and they did not, right? And they, we took them to 5 games, 6 games, 6 games. It was 6 games when we played them, right? I believe that's the case. Yeah, because Tampa was 5 and then Boston was 6. Right. So, Boston's going to be right there. Toronto, you just never know what you're going to get out of that team from year to year. How good is Ottawa going to be? How good is Buffalo going to be? Any of these teams, there are some teams that we kind of thought that was going to be and making a leap last year that didn't. So, Jackson says, I think the only one who can challenge us for the division title is Boston. Most likely that's correct. But, then we've got the Stanley Cup hangover, right? You got the Stanley Cup final hangover. And now, what we're hearing from Tkachuk and some of these other guys, especially Tkachuk, is I want it again. Now I'm hungrier now. Now I want it again. That's perfect. We're going to need that attitude. We did see as the year progressed last year and into the playoffs, this last year versus the previous year the way that we did things in the playoffs was significantly different. We were not just wildly running around all over the place, hitting everybody, right? Because that comes back on you, right? Chucky, splattered Eichel, and then whoops the daisy, fair back, payback is fair. Chucky got splattered, right? So we weren't kind of running around doing that. So I'll be interested to see how we start, because you guys remember the first, 2-3 months that Maurice was coach. And you guys have seen it on nights when we don't have our legs, when we don't have it. I have a feeling we'll start like a barn burner out of the gate, get ourselves nice and comfy, and then maybe games 20 through 50, we might just kind of be sleepwalking a little bit. Because the way that this system works is everybody has to have their legs, right? The forwards must come back. They have to come back. They have to skate, 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 skate. And we've seen when this team plays right, we just skate teams to death, which is fantastic. But you can't do it all 82 games. I remember last year we kind of hit a little dip in the road, and whatever Chucky or Verhage, Reinhardt, whoever was interviewed about it, they all basically kind of said, "Look, man, we can't play balls to the wall 82 games and the playoffs. So, we're fine. We're fine. Don't worry about it." And Maurice would say the same thing. So I would think that the momentum from the Cup win will get us going out of the gate. And then we might hit a little bit of a dip. And then somewhere, after the All-Star break, they might, okay, I guess it's time to wake back up and start getting this thing rolling around a little bit. In terms of the division, Jack's saying thinks the only one that can challenge us is Boston. That's probably accurate. But then again, Toronto, they're such an enigma. You never know what to expect from them, right? And certainly if this team decides to have the will to do this again, they might do it again. Now, there is another team on the other side, well, on the same coast, but in the other division, that's really going to want to have something to say about that, and that's the New York Rangers. And how long they got close this year, right? I'm sure, Ranger fans and Ranger players, I'm sure they can look back on that Eastern Conference Finals and think, man, just a little bit of a tweak here, a little bit of a different result here, and they could have been in the Cup final playing against Edmonton. When I look at it, when you look at it on paper and you look at recent history, I would think that the betting, and I don't pay attention to this, but I would think that the favorites right now to be back in the Eastern Conference Finals would be Rangers Panthers. I would think that would be where the betting money is. The Panthers are kind of turning into that team like Tampa was, where it's like, look, I'll bet against them after. When they start losing, I'll bet against them, right? I mean, we made the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row. I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth. But, right now, we're the team to beat in the conference. We're the team to beat in the league. But I don't think the Rangers are all that far behind us. And all it takes is, Shesterkin getting just having a little bit more of an edge to him, and Bob maybe being just a little bit older and just that microsecond of a fraction of a millimeter of a second slower, and the puck is over the line instead of he gloves it on the line and shoves it away. You know what I mean? I mean, you guys saw the Game 7 against Edmonton. The one where it looks like Luosterainen, towards the end of the third period, it looks like Luosterainen does the splits. Well, he did do the splits, and it looked like his skate blocked the puck. But then when you watch the replay in slow motion, the skate goes right under his ankle, and Bob is like, his whole body, his body is practically in the circle, and he's got like a 6-foot arm with a 4-foot glove extended, and somehow he just stops the puck before it goes in. I mean, you can play all year, and that's the difference. Look at Edmonton. That's the difference. That 1 microsecond, that 2 inches of glove, when Bob doesn't even know where the puck is, basically, and he's just hoping against hope that he can reach out, right? That's the difference between Game 7 overtime and not. And so, when you get these teams that are going to be that tightly matched, I would say that the only thing that let's put it this way, I would totally 100% expect the Panthers to make the playoffs and win the first round. That would be what I would totally expect. You start getting past that again. Now you're talking about a second round matchup against Toronto, maybe Boston. mean, those are teams that can beat us. They haven't yet. They haven't yet. But eventually, every team that wins, there's only one way to go. There's only, you know what I mean? There's only one. Once you're the champs, there's only one way to go. And we've been the conference champs twice now. So, you know, I fully expect you win the first round. But then you start talking about being in the second round in the playoffs, and now you're in your third in a row long playoff run. Of course, I want to win, right? But I think to expect them to just, fly through the conference. And, the other difference between this year and last year, I mean, what an incredible difference. What an incredible difference in terms of our health. And a lot of things played into that, right? Maurice, he talked about this. He said this very, very subtle thing at the beginning of the season in training camp. And I kept pounding that point home and hoping it meant what I thought it meant. And it did. And what he said was, we want to skate these teams to death. We want to just be able to be the most well-conditioned team. And that's why he runs his camps the way he does. And I took that to mean as though he had realized, okay, I've been doing this 20-something years, and I keep getting to the same point, and then I run out of body parts on my players. So maybe I've got the right idea, but instead of using physicality to obliterate the other team, we'll use our conditioning to obliterate the other team. And that's what we did. You watch the last 2-3 minutes of Game 7 against the Oilers, and our guys are up and back and up and back and up and back. And the Oilers players they got the puck on their stick, and they're huffing and puffing. They're like, here, you take the puck. They were completely gassed. And the amazing part of it, where you start all the way at training camp in mid-September, you start all the way now with the mindset of we are going to do all this work. So for the last 3 minutes of Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final in the middle of June, we're more conditioned than the other team, and we win. And it worked. And to watch anybody's plan be so well executed and worked out exactly the way, what does Maurice always say, right? He always says when we go to a series, we just assume Game 7. And it worked. It was as crazy as it went down. It worked. And, hey, the games 4, 5, and 6, I can't complain because games 4, 5, and 6, well, we would have had to play 4. But games 5, 6, and 7 paid my bills last month. and that's the truth of it. Like if we sweep and we win all 4, I mean, we made a lot more. We made a lot more money in those last 3 nights. So I wasn't thinking about it that way at that time, but over the course of the summer, as things have happened that you all have known about financially, I've looked at the bank account and looked at the analytics, and like, good thing we lost those 3 games, because I'd have really been screwed if they didn't. But it is. So the first year we went to the Cup, we didn't know what to expect, right? New coach, still, new players somewhat, right? We didn't quite know what to expect. We get to the finals against Vegas, we run out of gas. Now, this year, or last year was kind of the only year that you could look at the Panthers and be like, I have this expectation, and it is winning the Cup. Like, I think last year was the only year you could look at the Panthers and say, we have an expectation of winning the Cup. And we did it. Now, that don't just, there's a lot of teams. Look at Toronto fans. They have an expectation of winning the Cup almost every year. You know what I mean? And it don't happen. They look at their roster, they say, why not? We should be able to do this. So we got incredibly lucky. So now, when you talk about expectations for this season, I kind of feel like I did a little bit in Maurice's first season because it's kind of like, okay, we won the cup, right? We have exercised all the demons, all the times that we signed George Peros, right? Jakob Kindle, all of those times, all of those years, the Seth Griffith experiment, that's all been exercised. The demons are dead. Okay, now what? Right? It's kind of like the scene in Finding Nemo when the fish finally, when they get themselves in the bags and they hop over and they land in the ocean and the blowfish is, now what? It's like, well, yeah, now what? We done did what we set out to do. We still got most of the same guys, right? There's no reason we can't do it again. But is the motivation to do it again going to be the same? Like what they did last year is not easy. You look back in the history, especially in the salary cap, there's not a lot of teams that make the finals twice in a row. Look what happened when Colorado won. Look what happened when Vegas won. Now, Tampa did it. Well, they made 3 in a row. And I know that the bubble and all of that, but they still did it. Right? You know, everything was equal between the teams. So I don't really like to put an asterisk there. But past that, a lot of teams that win, you see a lot of first round exits the following year. You know, it just tends to happen. Look at the Capitals. They never made it back, right? They won, they got it, they did it, but then they never made it back. And I think that they kind of thought they had some longer runs coming after they won, but they spent so many years trying to get there. I think once they won, that bubble was kind of burst a little bit. You know, we all seen the iconic photo of Ovechkin and how happy he was, and how could he not be? So the energy that they expended to win is going to be different than the energy that you expend to repeat. Now, one thing that will or should not be as big of a concern that would normally be, being that we've made it twice, okay? So we make it the first year, and then there's last regular season. At that point, we were already hated. We were already the Eastern Conference champions, right? So for the most part, we already had that bullseye on our back, and teams would give us their best effort every night. Talked about that at the beginning of the season last year, where, you know, now every team that comes into us, you know, they're going to give us their best effort, right? While, you know, we can't put out our best effort every single night over and over and over again. So while teams will still be giving us their best effort again this year because we won the cup, we're used to it, right? It's not going to come as a shock or as a surprise to anybody when, you know, in the middle of January, when, you know, Ottawa comes into town, or Buffalo, or, you know, somebody that's in last place comes into town, and our guys are like, man, is it April yet? And, you know, Buffalo looks good and beats the crap out of us 4-1. You know, those games are going to happen. We have a different mindset now. We have a different goal in mind. And the fact that we won the cup last year, it gives proof of concept. It gives Maurice and the players proof of concept that, okay, if we don't kill ourselves, if we don't beat up our bodies so much, and we just remain the best conditioned team, we can win a cup this way. So you're likely to see somewhat of a repeat of last year's regular season play out. And remember, we only won the division right there at the very end, right? So, in terms of the pecking order in the Atlantic, like I said, some of the teams last year that we thought were going to be better, it just never materialized for them. Now, there's going to be some teams that, like are the Flyers for real, right? Are they going to be able to take the next step? Are the Devils going to get healthy? Are they going to be good again? They had the 1 year and we thought, okay, here come the Devils. And then, not so much last year. Could you see, now this applies to the Leafs. Sometimes the team is only as good as the team ever got. Now I know the Leafs never made it to the Stanley Cup, haven't made it to the Stanley Cup final with this version of the Leafs. So comparison's a little bit different, but Marino's second year, they made the Super Bowl. They never made it back, right? That was the peak. No matter how good he was and how much expectation there was, they never made it back. Had the Leafs peaked? It sounds crazy to say it, but there's a line. There's a balance. There's a line there. Like with what I just talked about with the Capitals. They won right when they needed to win. They had already had enough disappointment. And it kind of got to the point where it's like, look, we need to win this now, or I don't think we're winning, right? And to some extent, that's why Huberdeau's not here. Because I think in reality of things, I think Zito had the same kind of mindset that we all did after that last series against Tampa, which was, I don't know if Barkov Huberdeau is the combination. I don't know if these are the two guys that are going to do it. And he saw a chance to move on from that, and he did, and it worked. We win. So in terms of Toronto, have they already peaked? Have they peaked getting to the second round? No matter what, basically, for the most part, unless there are some odd circumstances, to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, they're either going to have to beat Florida and Boston or Florida and Boston, depending on where Tampa slots in or somebody else slots in, right? That's a big ask for any team. That's a big ask for any team because beating Boston and Florida would kind of be like beating Tampa when they were winning cups and Boston. You see what I'm saying? To get through that gauntlet, that's not going to be easy. So it's the point I'm making is that at some point, the Leafs players will start to lose belief. At some point, they will have had too much disappointment in the postseason, and it'll play out during the regular season. At some point, they will have one more series loss in the postseason, and they'll we just can't. We just can't beat those guys, whether it's Boston or Florida. We just can't beat them, right? They've shown they can beat Tampa. But Boston and Florida, that's going to be a different story. And Florida's just as good. Boston's at least just as good, right? So I think for the Leafs, I can understand the desperation sometimes in the fan base because when you look at the players that they have, it's kind of like, I used to talk about Marino. It's like you look at the players, like, how are we not winning? Well, we could never beat Buffalo. It didn't matter what we did. It just didn't matter who left, who came. Nothing mattered. We couldn't beat Buffalo. We just couldn't beat Buffalo. I don't care what happened. And the Leafs might find themselves in that position with Florida and Boston, or Boston, one of the two. They might win the division, but if the division is, Toronto, Florida, Boston, Tampa, or Buffalo, or Detroit, or, whoever, maybe they get past that first round, and then they got either Boston or Florida in the second round. And if they're playing Boston or Florida, whoever they are playing just beat Boston or Florida. You follow what I'm saying? So their road to me, Toronto has the toughest road to an Eastern Conference final in the Stanley Cup than almost any other team, especially in the East. Because, when you look over in the Metro, it's like, well, the Rangers, it's like, hey, you got to get past Carolina, right? Is Pittsburgh ever going to make it again? Maybe not. I mean, the Islanders, the Flyers, so the Rangers' path is much easier than anybody in the Atlantic. Certainly, though, the Leafs would have the toughest, most difficult path to get there because, the worst team out of those four that you're going to have to play is Tampa. And they did prove, they have proven that they can beat Tampa, but there's still a lot of buts there. And then you've got the rest of the teams that might come up. And, the Western Conference, not my specialty, but none of the teams, it's been a while since a Western Conference team won and made it back the following year. It's been a hot minute. And Edmonton, now let's talk about the Oilers for a second. Let me take a sip of water here. If there's one chance in one team that could have history repeat itself in the sense that Panthers made it to the Cup, lost, put their mind to it, came back and won. If there's a chance for that to repeat, it could be Edmonton. They've got the pieces. Goaltending, goaltending. Not that it was terrible. Wasn't terrible. It just wasn't miraculous, right? It wasn't miraculous like ours was. Could they do what we did? Or is that team, are they built the same way? Certainly they're not built the same way in the salaries. Holy crap. Jeez. With the money that they're handing out, how long until they get, is McDavid going to get 20 million? That's crazy, the amount of money that they're handing out. They pay for it in other parts of their roster. Panthers aren't having that issue, right? Panthers could be sitting pretty here, right? You got Bob this year, next year. Now, I know I've dabbled around with the thought that maybe Bob would want to stay an extra couple of years and be a backup, right? Don't know. Backup, I use the term backup loosely, sort of like Swayman Omar, if you went with Bob and Knight, if Knight progresses the way we need him to be. Could you see Bobrovsky be like, yeah, I'll stay for 2 more years at $5 million per and only start 35 games a year? Could see that. Can happen. But if he doesn't, I would assume that he feels like Spencer Knight is ready to take the job. And if Spencer Knight's ready to take the job, then the Panthers are going to kind of do at goaltender what the Packers do at quarterback, right? Favre, Rodgers, Love. It's just like, here you go, right? We might go the Wongo, Bobrovsky, Knight. And if Knight turns into even somebody as good as what Swayman is, rest of the team is still young enough to where as long as Zito can keep the pipeline going, we could be good for a while. Then, of course, there's the question that will arise all year long, and that is Aaron Ekblad. This is the last year of his contract. It's a $7.5 million cap hit. Let me just say right here on the eve of the seasoning, on the eve of the season, I see no circumstance where Aaron Ekblad gets moved during the regular season, which means he won't get moved because once the season's over, officially over, he'll be a free agent. Now, in terms of what that number would look like if we're going to extend him or keep him, man, only Aaron knows that. Talked about it a million times. He always says how much he loves it. Florida wants to stay. Well, you're going to have to take a pay cut, right? And now we can say he deserves to be bumped down to the second line all we want, second pair, but who's going to be next to Forsling? Is that guy on the roster right now? Right? Remember, Montour's gone. OEL is gone. Okay. Is that guy, is Ekblad's replacement on the roster? And that's something to take into consideration. We just won a Stanley Cup with the guy. Now, I know injuries have taken a toll on him, but if he remains status quo, and he's young enough to where if he doesn't get any new real injuries, he should at least be able to stay status quo and continue to be as good as he was last year for a few years. If that's the case, then you have to start wondering, well, okay, how much of a hometown discount is he willing to give? Because there are other contracts out there, right? You got Bennett and Verhaeghe hanging out there. Now, I know that there had been, during free agency, there had been some talk that the Panthers had agreed with Verhaeghe, I think, at 8.2. But nothing there ever materialized. And then there's Sam Bennett. Now, we just paid Anton Lundell. And I'll say it again. Anton Lundell is Sam Bennett insurance. Can Zito keep the entire thing together? The key there is going to be not losing two guys. Out of Verhaeghe, Bennett, Ekblad, we don't have to lose anybody, but Ekblad's going to have to take a pay cut. Bennett is going, and Verhaeghe are going to have to look at Reinhart and be like, if he can live with that, I can live with that. I haven't looked specifically at the cap space in a while, obviously. I'll deal with that this week, although anybody know, I know Cap Friendly is gone. Where do we go for that now? I obviously haven't looked this summer. But from what I remember last year when I looked at it, I kind of felt like the same way I felt beginning of the previous year, where what Zito said is that there could be a plan to keep everybody, but it's going to take some sacrifice by some of the players. If we win again, right? If we win the damn thing again, does that make it more or less enticing for guys like Verhaeghe and Bennett to want to stay? I really don't want to lose Verhaeghe. You can't lose Verhaeghe, right? His skill set and his ability, he should remain a sniper for quite some time. You know what I mean? Now, Bennett's had his share of injuries. He's a little bit of a different situation. I love Sam Bennett, but do you want to give him the 8x8? You know what I mean? That might be a bit, Sam Bennett at 37, 38 might not be a second line $8 million player. But that day comes for all cup teams, right? Anybody that wins, that day eventually comes where you have to start saying, well, we're gonna pay a little bit here for some past successes and take our hits. But we got the coach, we got the GM. If Spencer Knight continues to develop the way he was developing before his time in the assistance program, we should have the future goaltender as well. All signs are good. All signs are good. All right, everybody, that is going to do it for today. Thank you for joining me. Now, for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, what this is this is the members and Patreon supporters exclusive podcast live. So the only way you can be live on the show at noon, Monday through Friday, is if you are a member on YouTube or a member on Patreon. Now, once the live show is over, I make the stream public so everybody can hear the lovely sound of my voice. But as this grows and gets on, we'll have more people on. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. And yeah, man, camp is on Thursday. It's Monday. Camp starts Thursday. I gotta go do my eBay pack and ship. It's good. It's been a good weekend, except for the Dolphins. That's a different channel. It's a different subject, Jaws. I'll see you tomorrow.